There is a level of mental discipline where the mind gets stronger the harder the situation becomes. Not calmer, stronger, clearer, more precise, exactly when everything around it is collapsing. Most people have experienced the opposite. The meeting where the stakes are highest is the one where the mind goes blank. The moment that requires the most clarity is the one where anxiety takes over. The situation that demands your best thinking produces your worst. And here is the thing nobody tells you about that. That is not bad luck. That is not a personal flaw. That is the direct result of how your mind was trained. Most people train their minds in comfortable conditions. They meditate in quiet rooms. They practice focus when nothing is demanding their attention. They build mental habits in the easiest possible circumstances. Then they expect those habits to hold when the circumstances become hardest. They do not hold, because the mind learned to perform in calm. And calm is not where performance is required. In 19th century Japan, a swordsman named Yamaoka Teshu understood this with brutal precision. He had watched warriors with excellent technique fail under real pressure, not because their technique abandoned them, because their minds did. The mind that performed in training became a different mind in combat. Tighter, slower, louder with the wrong thoughts at the worst moment. He developed a system specifically designed to close that gap. Not by building a calm mind, by building a mind that worked better under pressure than without it. He called it Seishin Tanren, the forging of the spirit. And it is the most demanding mental training the samurai tradition ever produced. This video is about that training and the 5 exercises that make it work. Subscribe and let's begin. Chapter 1. The student whose mind betrayed him. Tokyo, 1868. Ryu is 22 years old. He has been training in Teshu's dojo for 18 months. His sword work is strong. His technical foundation is solid. The senior students acknowledge his ability. In controlled sparring, he is excellent. In the monthly assessment, where Teshu himself watches and evaluates, Ryu falls apart completely. The pattern is consistent and visible to everyone except Ryu himself. The moment the assessment begins, something changes in him. His breathing becomes shallow. His movement becomes mechanical. The fluid quality that his practice has in ordinary sessions disappears. He becomes reactive rather than responsive, predictable, easy to read. After one particularly poor assessment, Teshu calls him aside. Not harshly, with the precision of someone who has seen this exact problem hundreds of times. "Tell me what happens when I watch," he says. Ryu thinks. "My mind goes somewhere else. I start thinking about whether I am performing well, whether I am making mistakes. What you are thinking. You. And where was your mind 30 minutes ago during practice?" "Here, just the movement." Teshu nods. 2 different minds. One you have in practice, one you have when something is at stake. You have spent 18 months training the first one. You have done nothing to train the second. He looks at Ryu steadily. The mind you have in practice is your mind in comfort. It performs when nothing is demanding it. The mind you have in assessment is your real mind, the one that exists when the situation has stakes. That is the mind that will be present in every moment that actually matters. He pauses. Your comfortable mind is trained, your real mind is not, and an untrained mind under pressure does not just perform poorly. It performs in the opposite direction of everything the comfortable mind has learned. Ryu sits with this. How do I train it? Teshu stands. By placing it under pressure deliberately, repeatedly, until pressure is no longer the condition where it fails, but the condition where it performs best. He walks to the door. Tomorrow we begin differently. This is the truth that most mental training misses entirely. Calm training produces a calm-dependent performance. The skill exists in the condition where it was built. Remove that condition, and the skill becomes unreliable. The meditator who cannot maintain focus when the stakes are real has not built focus. They have built a performance of focus that requires comfortable conditions to run. Seishin Tanren addresses this directly, not by building calm, by building the mind's capacity to function under the specific conditions where it currently fails. The research on this is precise. Studies on performance under pressure show consistently that skills trained in low-stress conditions show significant degradation under high-stress ones. The neural pathways built in calm are not the same as those activated under stress. Training in calm does not prepare the mind for stress. Training under stress builds the pathways that operate under stress. Tesshu understood this not through neuroscience but through decades of watching the gap between what warriors could do in training and what they could do when it mattered. His solution was to make the training matter. Chapter 2. The First Forging. The next morning, Tesshu gives Ryu an instruction that makes no sense to him. Today you will practice your sword forms while I insult you. Ryu stares. Not harshly, precisely. Every flaw I see, I will name. Loudly, in front of the other students, while you continue the form without pause. He looks at Ryu. Your task is not to perform perfectly. Your task is to maintain the quality of attention you have in private practice, while I create every condition that normally destroys it. The session begins. Within the first minutes, Tesshu's commentary starts. The observations are accurate and specific. Ryu's left shoulder dropping on the draw, his breathing shortening before a transition, his eyes losing focus at a particular moment in the sequence. Each observation is made loudly. The other students can hear. Ryu's face tightens. His movement becomes defensive. The quality he had 30 seconds ago is already deteriorating. Tesshu does not stop. He increases. By the end of the session, Ryu's form is worse than it has been in months. He is humiliated. He expected to fail, and he failed exactly as expected. Tesshu watches him finish. What happened? My mind went to what you were saying, to the other students watching, to whether I was getting worse. I could not stay in the form. Yes, because your attention is not trained to stay under social pressure. It moves toward the source of threat and away from the task. This is the untrained default. He sits. We will do this every day for 2 weeks, not to embarrass you, to train your attention to return to the task while the pressure is actively working against it. He looks at Ryu directly. The first week you will get worse. This is normal. The system is being tested before it can be rebuilt. Do not interpret getting worse as failure. Interpret it as the accurate measurement of where the training needs to go. Ryu returns the next morning, and the morning after. Each session the commentary arrives. Each session, his attention moves toward it and has to be pulled back to the task. By the 5th day, something small but real shifts. He notices the movement happening, not after it has already cost him the session. During it, the attention moves toward Tesshu's voice, and something inside Ryu observes this happening and pulls it back faster than before. He reports this to Tesshu that evening. Tesshu nods once. That is the beginning of the training, not the holding, the noticing. The faster the noticing, the faster the return. The faster the return, the shorter the gap where pressure owns your attention. He is quiet for a moment. Most people think focus is a sustained holding. They grip the attention and try not to let it move. When it moves, which it always does, they feel they have failed. He shakes his head. Attention always moves. The training is not to prevent the movement. It is to shorten the time between moving and returning, until the return is faster than the movement. Until pressure arrives and the attention is already back before the pressure has fully registered. This is the first exercise of Seishin Tanren, training under active disruption. Not training to block out distraction, training the attention to return to the task while distraction is actively present and working. The difference is significant. Most focus training is about creating conditions where distraction is minimized. Seishin Tanren is about training the return reflex under conditions where distraction is maximized. Because life does not minimize distraction at the moments that matter, it maximizes it. The presentation where your credibility is at stake happens in a room full of people whose opinions matter to you. The conversation that requires your most careful thinking happens when your nervous system is already activated. The performance that defines something important happens exactly when the conditions for performance are worst. Training only in the absence of these conditions produces a mind that performs without them. Training in their presence produces a mind that performs within them. Neuroscience describes this through the concept of stress inoculation. Repeated controlled exposure to the stress response builds the prefrontal cortex's capacity to maintain executive function while the amygdala is activated. The trained mind does not stop the stress response from running. It builds a parallel pathway that holds attention on the task while the response is running. Stress present, focus also present, both simultaneously. This is not calm under pressure, it is function within pressure, completely different things. How to apply this today? Choose one skill you are currently developing. Practice it this week while deliberately adding one source of pressure. A timer running visibly, someone watching. Stakes attached to the outcome. The goal is not to perform perfectly under pressure. It is to practice the return of attention to the task while pressure is actively present. Count the returns, not the performance quality, the returns. Chapter 3. What breaks before it holds? 2 weeks in. Exactly as Teshu predicted, Ryu's performance got worse before it got better. The commentary sessions continued. Every morning, every flaw named loudly, every deterioration witnessed by the other students. Ryu showed up anyway because Teshu had made one thing clear from the beginning. The training does not negotiate. You arrive or you leave. There is no middle option. The second week, something shifted. Not dramatically. A single session where the quality held slightly longer before deteriorating. Then another. Then a session where Teshu's commentary arrived and Ryu's attention moved toward it and returned faster than it had before. Teshu noticed, "You returned faster today." I noticed the attention moving before I was not noticing until after. Yes, the noticing is the training, not the holding. The faster you notice the movement, the faster you can return. Eventually, the return becomes faster than the movement. The distraction arrives and the attention is already back before the distraction has fully registered. He stands. But we are only at the beginning. Social pressure is one kind of disruption. Physical exhaustion is another. We add it tomorrow. The next phase of Teshu's training was what his students called the fire sessions. Physical practice pushed to the edge of exhaustion, then sword work. Not rest, then sword work. Exhaustion, then sword work. The specific condition where the mind is most likely to fail is the condition where the body has consumed the resources the mind normally uses to regulate itself. Ryu's first fire session lasted 4 hours. 2 hours of physical conditioning that left him barely able to stand. Then sword forms, Teshu watching. The quality was gone. The technical precision that his rested mind produced was inaccessible. His exhausted mind could not hold the thread of attention that the form required. It kept moving toward the discomfort, toward the ache in his legs, toward the burning in his arms, toward the single overwhelming desire for the session to end. Teshu stopped him. "What do you notice?" "I cannot think clearly. My mind keeps going to the discomfort, to how tired I am, to wanting it to stop." Yes, fatigue does not weaken the body first. It weakens the mind's ability to direct the body. The body has more capacity than the mind can access when the mind is preoccupied with its own discomfort. He looks at Ryu. The training is not to ignore the discomfort. It is to hold the task alongside the discomfort, both present simultaneously. The discomfort there, the attention also there, not split between them. Both. He demonstrates. His own form, exhausted from the same session. The quality is different from his rested practice. Slower, more labored, but the quality of attention is unchanged. It is fully present with the movement, even as the movement is clearly harder. Ryu watches this for a long time. How? Because I have practiced holding the task in discomfort 10,000 times. The discomfort is there. I know it is there. I do not fight it or suppress it. I allow it to be there and keep the attention on the form, both present. After enough repetitions, this becomes the default, not the exception. He finishes the form. The mind that can hold attention alongside discomfort is a different instrument than the mind that can only hold it in the absence of discomfort. Your mind currently collapses into discomfort. The training is to build a mind that holds both. This is the second exercise of Seishin Tanren, training under physical exhaustion. Not physical conditioning for its own sake, physical conditioning as the deliberate production of the mental state where attention fails. and then training the attention to return and hold within that state. Modern research on this is unambiguous. Cognitive performance under physical stress follows a specific pattern: initial sharp decline as the body's stress response activates. Then, in people who have trained in these conditions, a partial recovery as the nervous system learns to operate with reduced resources. The trained mind does not perform as well as the rested mind under exhaustion, but it degrades significantly less than the untrained one. The gap between these two degradation curves is the entire content of Seishin Tanren. The untrained mind loses most of its capacity under pressure. The trained one loses far less. Not because the pressure is smaller, because the mind has been in that condition enough times that it knows what to do there. How to apply this today? Once a week, deliberately practice your most demanding mental skill at the end of physical exertion rather than before it, after a run, after a hard workout. Not because performance will be better, because training the mind to hold the task within fatigue builds the specific capacity that rested training never can. Seishin's student said his training was impossible. The ones who completed it were different people. If this is changing how you understand your own mind's training, like this video. It tells the algorithm this matters. Now, we continue. The 5 exercises of Seishin Tanren. What follows is the system Seishin built across 30 years of observation and practice, extracted from his teaching methods and from the documented accounts of his students. 5 exercises, each one targeting a specific condition where the mind fails, each one building the capacity that comfortable training never reaches. Exercise 1. The disrupted practice. Choose one skill you are developing. A physical practice, a creative one, a professional one. It does not matter what. Practice it for 20 minutes. During those 20 minutes, introduce one active disruption. A voice critiquing your performance. A timer creating time pressure. Stakes attached to the outcome. Another person watching and evaluating. Your goal is not to perform perfectly. Your goal is to notice when your attention moves toward the disruption and to return it to the task. Count the returns, not the performance quality, the returns. Week 1, you will perform worse than in undisturbed conditions. This is correct. You are measuring the gap for the first time. Week 3, the returns will be faster. Week 6, the disruption will arrive and the attention will already be returning before it has fully registered. This is not concentration. This is the trained reflex of return under pressure. It is a different skill and it requires different training. Exercise 2. The exhaustion practice. Once a week, practice your most demanding skill at the end of physical exertion rather than in a rested state. Not to perform better, to train the mind to function when the body's resources are depleted. 30 minutes of physical exertion sufficient to produce genuine fatigue, immediately followed by 20 minutes of the skill. The specific instruction during this session: when the mind moves toward the discomfort of the body, acknowledge the discomfort and return to the task, both present, not the discomfort suppressed. The task also present alongside it. Over weeks, the degradation from fatigue will decrease, not because the fatigue decreases, because the mind's capacity to hold the task within the fatigue increases. This is the specific capacity that determines performance in every high-stakes moment. Every real challenge arrives with a version of this exhaustion. Not always physical, the exhaustion of sustained stress, of depleted sleep, of accumulated pressure. The mind that has trained in these conditions holds when the untrained one collapses. Exercise 3. The cold water practice. This is the oldest of Seishin's exercises and the most misunderstood. Cold water immersion, not for the physical benefit, for the specific mental state it produces. Seishin required his students to begin every morning with cold water, not warm water that gradually cooled. Cold from the first moment. The reaction was immediate and total, every morning. His reasoning was precise. He told his students, every significant challenge in your life will activate the same response this water activates. The heart that wants to race, the breath that wants to shorten, the mind that floods with the single message to exit. If you train your response only in calm conditions, this response will own you when it arrives in combat, in crisis, in the moment of real pressure. If you train it every morning in the cold water, it becomes familiar. And what is familiar does not own you. Cold water activates the stress response fully and immediately. Heart rate rises. Breathing becomes difficult. The mind floods with the single overwhelming message to exit. The practice is to stay, not to suppress the response, not to pretend the cold is not cold, to hold a single point of focus while the response is fully active. The breath, a specific sensation, a simple count, 2 minutes, then 3, then 5. What is being trained is not cold tolerance. It is the specific capacity to hold a chosen focus while the stress response is running at full activation. This is precisely the mental state of every high-pressure performance. The mind flooded with signals to exit, the task requiring presence anyway. The cold water is a shortcut to that state, reliable, controllable, available every morning, producing exactly the conditions that high-stakes performance and genuine crisis produce. Modern research confirms the mechanism. Cold exposure activates the same sympathetic nervous system response as psychological stress, the same neurochemical cascade, the same physiological signature. Training the mind to function within cold exposure trains the same capacity that allows function within psychological pressure. The specificity of the transfer is remarkable.